Hello, and welcome to the Self-Care with Herbs segment of the Elder Tree podcast. I'm your host, Jess Bosker, naturopath, herbalist, and medicine maker. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the Banjalang people, the traditional custodians of the land on which I live, and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, come along and join me each month for beautiful conversations with guests from across the country, exploring ways we can weave plant medicine into our days to enrich our experience of self-care, sharing routines, rituals, and recipes for elevating mind, body, and spirit. Amber Alekhamis is a qualified naturopathic herbalist, certified in iridology and flower essences. Her work and life revolve around being in reverie with nature and advocating for us as people to be in a reciprocal relationship with the earth. She continues to try to always be a proponent for traditional practices of naturopathy and to be guided by the light of nature. Amber lives in the Northern Rivers of New South Wales with her husband, where she runs her small business known as From The Eartha. During this episode, Amber shares how an upbringing steeped in the philosophy of nature connection, alongside a childhood living on the wild islands off the coast of Western Australia, heavily influenced her belief systems and the way that she practices and connects with herbal medicine today. Amber's passionate about keeping alive the traditions and constitutional approaches of early naturopathic founders, focusing on the whole person rather than reducing someone to their symptoms. She uses herbal oils as a way of deepening her connection to herbal medicine, but also as a beautifully gentle introduction to using herbs for those that are new to plant medicine, helping her clients experience the potency and effectiveness of plants in a way that asks them to slow down and use all their senses. I loved chatting with Amber about two often overlooked herbs, chamomile and comfrey, and the way she uses them in her herbal oils. This is a beautiful nature-inspired chat, which I think you're going to love. Hello, Amber, and welcome to the Self-Care with Herbs segment of the Elder Tree podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you on today. Looking out my window, it's such a picture perfect winter day. The sky's blue, the sun is shining, there's a little bit of a brisk wind. I can see my mandarin tree with some little fruits starting to ripen up. It's just such a magic time of year, isn't it?
Beautiful. Yes, we have our lemons growing as well, and some oranges too, which are slowly starting to come. It's so exciting.
Very beautiful. Now, I'd love to start this interview with a beautiful quote from your newly established Substack. And it talks a little bit about your philosophy of naturopathy. So I'm going to dive straight into that. This beautiful quote begins, "Naturopathy was born as a way to ignite the light of nature within ourselves and others, to be a reminder of the relationship we have with the earth, to find our way back when we have wandered, to be a part of the ever-changing and effervescent landscape that is us as human beings, but to never forget that is a reflection of the natural world herself. We are not to be reduced to our parts, to have forgotten how to pay respect to those before. We are from the earth, and nature will listen to our call every single time." It's so beautiful, Amber.
Thank you.
I imagine this idea has evolved, and your concept of naturopathy and what it means has changed over time. And I'd really love to take you back to that time when your relationship with plant medicine first began. Let's go right back to the beginning.
Oh gosh, it is hard. It is hard to think right back, but the memories that when I have taken the time to think about this that really stick out are really stemming from both my parents, but I will speak to my father, who's someone who is an incredibly smart man, and I will admit that some of his philosophies and what he has studied in his life can still very much go over my head. But he has been, I guess you could call it a follower, or just a believer in historical people such as like Victor Schauberger, Rudolf Steiner, people that were sort of in that 19th century, 18th century time, that were very far ahead of the others, of what they believed in. And so Victor Schauberger is quite a pivotal person, I would say, within my dad's and my life, as someone who was a philosopher, and his family was in the forest industry. And he was someone who would spend so much time outside and be connecting with the trees because of his family's work, and connecting with the water and the rivers. And he would sit by the rivers, and he would speak about how he would just let his consciousness flow with the rivers, and that the water would come back to him with messages. And so he was a huge pioneer at that time for inventing contraptions, inventing methods of using water as a certain way of energy as well. And so these sort of philosophies, it sounds a little bit a tangent from my path in a sense, but these philosophies of listening to nature and connecting to nature has really stuck with me, and that's come a lot from my father over my life. And so in terms of a first herbal memory or along those lines, I don't sort of speak to having something like that. I think it's more, I once heard a quote that Stephen Buhner had said that, not everyone has this pivotal moment of just knowing with the plants, or just knowing that that's what they want to practice, but it's this silent call of the heart, and it's just almost this undeniable pull. You just can't do anything about it. And I sort of feel that that's been more my path over my life. I've definitely been someone who grew up in nature. My dad was a crayfisherman as well for most of his life, so we actually spent our childhood, my brother and I, off the West Australian coast, on a place called the Herbalist Islands. And so we would live on an island for many months out of the year while my dad was fishing. And so that was a huge impact on my life, of course. And so I think it's just sort of almost this amalgamation of all these experiences growing up and having his influence that has really led me to choose the naturopathy or herbalism path.
Wow, Amber, what a childhood. That's very amazing to have that time like absolutely immersed in nature, and to have that philosophy kind of, you're in it from your very earliest memories, and having that connection with nature.
Definitely. Yeah, it was such a grateful childhood that I've had, and I will, forever hold that for my whole life, as something that has shaped who I am, and I miss it dearly at times, but that life is gone now, and it's moved on, and it's blossomed into something else.
So I imagine that connection with nature is still really quite strong. Is that kind of the way that your decision to move towards naturopathy came about? That kind of, that sense that this method of practicing and caring for our health is a way of continuing that connection with nature?
Yeah, definitely. And, I guess I also started out in a sense, a cliche way of thinking about doing nursing, years ago, very briefly, but because I wanted to sort of go down that path of helping people. So I was looking into more that aspect. And then I just didn't even think about naturopathy, as the other way. And so I was sort of looking at universities for nursing, thinking about how I could go around doing that. And that's when I had, come across the college I attended for my degree, and started there. And so I guess in that sense, always having that way of wanting to help, but then through through nature, of course, nature's always been there, but I think it took me a while to still find that path that nature can also be that way, even though I grew up in such an environment of having that so accessible. But it still took me a long time to really make those connections that that's actually, you can sort of offer that for other people as well. And it's kind of stemming from those areas.
And looking at that crossover between nature and the way that we care for our health, was naturopathy or alternative methods of caring for health a part of your upbringing, or is that something that came in later as you started to study naturopathy?
Yeah, it's definitely been a part of my upbringing. I wouldn't say that as a family we sort of, made herbal medicines or things like that, but we would definitely always choose the natural alternatives before having to go to a general practitioner or something like that. So it was always in that realm of, wanting to definitely work more with the natural resources as much as possible. So it's definitely more intertwined in that way in my life.
Beautiful. And I know that in the early days of studying naturopathy, everything can feel really dry and disconnected from nature. Did you find that was a similar path for you, that you really had to kind of lean into your past experiences and that connection with nature to kind of overcome that dryness of those early subjects?
Oh my goodness. Yes. They really try and weed you out, don't they? With those initial subjects. Yes, but definitely. I will also speak to, I feel I was very lucky within my first even week of going to university. I met my beautiful friend Jules, and she was someone that we just connected instantly. And so I found her as well to be such a support for reminding ourselves about that connection to nature and about why we're there. They always say, while you're studying, remember the reason why and remember why you're here. And it can be really hard to hold on to that as the years go on. But I feel like having another plant person, I don't want to say, true plant person, because everyone that's there is obviously there for their reasons too, but just in a personal aspect of having someone who understands how you see things, that was very instrumental as well. I would even speak for both of us to continue what we were doing. We supported each other a lot through that. But definitely in my own life as well, just being able to take those moments away from the institution was, of course, incredibly important. And as you know, we live in the Northern Rivers area, and so there's such vast beauty around us and nature and spots to go to where that's definitely more accessible in a sense, I would imagine, compared to being in the cities or things like that. So, of course, I had that opportunity as well, which was,
And did you and Jules find any ways to kind of keep that connection burning? Like, did you have any little practices that you would, practice, or was it more about that solidarity of let's get together and just really have a nice big download about how this is going?
I think it was definitely more the solidarity at that time. I am quite an introverted person in my own sense, and Jules is as well. So in that way, when we would come together, it was, definitely more about having those conversations of what we want to, bring into it. And when we come out the other side, how we can really make that a reality.
And keeping that front of mind when it's so easy just to start to feel really bogged down and like can't see the the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, definitely. So,
Now, I'd really love to hear from you, Amber. Obviously, the theme of this podcast is self-care, and I'd love to hear what your idea or what self-care means to you.
So, I recently read a quote that said, we must untrain ourselves in the ways of the world to be able to discern the language of the earth. And I feel that that's actually where I'm at the moment in my self-care practice. I have been really feeling the struggle of the inundation of our generation, or my generation, I could say, all generations at this point in time. The inundation, the overload of information, really trying to sort of make your place in the world. And I really struggled with that, you know, within my life, but definitely within more as I've gotten older. And so I find at the moment my self-care is very much centered around really trying to connect back to the earth and the language of the earth. And I guess at the moment that can, for me, look like just going for a walk outside on some of those days where that's just what I really need. Of course, I like to use herbs, herbal teas, tinctures, things like that in my daily life internally. But I do find at the moment just more being actually outside, watching the birds, listening to the trees rustle, hearing the wind blow, just being aware of what's around me, and really, understanding that I'm not alone in that sense, you know. I'm not sort of, the earth is there for me, and it's my friend, you know, and that's a true possibility for everyone. And I think, you know, we can all get so caught up in sort of being in the world, because I do have a big difference in my mind of being in the world and then being in the earth. I find them to be completely different aspects of life. And one of them is that much more intellectual hustle mentality, go, go, go. But then being in the earth is the truth of, I believe, why we're here. And I would really speak to that disconnection of the earth as really being such a root cause of really all sickness, mental, physical. I love
that, Amber. I remember very early on in my naturopathy degree studies, we were doing a subject where we were asked to take a walk and really journal what we were noticing, because often when you walk, and I do this often on my morning walk, you're still in your head, you know, you're still getting the to-do list happening, or what am I going to have for breakfast when I get home, and you kind of had that walk and back and you haven't noticed a single thing. And just being asked to kind of drop down and go, all right, okay, what am I hearing? Oh, there's a butcher bird singing. What am I smelling? Oh, look, the melaleucas are flowering. What can I see? Oh, look at the rosellas flying over. And just that practice has really stuck with me. And it's kind of a really lovely way of letting your mind kind of wander through nature rather than being stuck in that, oh, what am I going to do today? What have I got to tick off my list?
Definitely. It's so important as well because, you know, going through institutional systems like we have, and you know, I'm so happy to hear that you had teachers that promoted that, because I feel like sort of with what I went through, it wasn't that accessible really at all. No, not many people really even spoke to actually being in the earth and actually witnessing the plants in real life, and trying to have that connection just to, even if it was just to one plant or one herb that you're learning about. It was quite rare to, be able to have any of those conversations with a lot of the people that were in the college at the time. And so that was a big struggle because, you know, it's like I can't stress enough how much that has helped my mental health, especially going through those last years of finishing the degree and coming out the other side, and just feeling so depleted and so like, oh my, what have I done, you know? And but and then being outside, it's crazy, you know, how much it's so helpful. But it's where we're from, you know, so of course it makes sense.
Do you find yourself having conversations with people who you're working with in a naturopathic perspective about this connection and how important it is for our overall health?
Yes, I definitely do try, and I guess that big part of the naturopathic sense is to be able to educate, and and that's not just in that scientific realm or even plant sort of herbal realm, in terms of giving people tinctures and things like that, but definitely educating just on the beauty of the natural world. But I guess, of course it can depend on the person. Some people just, they're not ready to hear it, and that's fine, It's no judgment there at all. But I definitely do try. Sometimes I feel like I might even spin it more in a way of that, even things that people come in with that obviously they're experiencing sicknesses, ailments they're going through, that a big part of it is really the society we live in as well. It's really, sometimes it really is out of our hands, and that can also be hard, to present that to people too, when naturopathy in itself is almost kind of viewed nowadays as if there is a cure plant-wise for everything. Like it's just sort of taken that form of how pharmaceuticals are seen, but obviously in that kind of green doctor sense, if I may. And so, yeah, I try and sometimes just express that, a lot of it is really just about management too, and it might not even be possible these days to really not have any symptoms at all. Like that's also quite just not true to think about. We're always going to have something else come up in our lives, and that's just the reality of being a human. So in that sense, yeah, just being able to try and get that across, sometimes in that little bit diverted way, I find, depends on the person, can also be helpful, rather than just trying to say to someone, just get outside. Sometimes that also might not be the way. It's
not going to land.
Yeah.
I remember reading also on your Substack about how what you just spoke about, how naturopathy has, is coming around to really a lot of practitioners, and a lot of the practice of naturopathy, as you said, is now, Withania if you're feeling stressed, or, California poppy if you've got some pain, and it's that same kind of linear, relationship that we have with the pills that are prescribed by general practitioners.
Yes.
I'm wondering, how you're able to kind of go beyond that. What are your thoughts? What are your practice in terms of, stepping outside of that box in terms of this is for this and that will fix you?
Yes. Yes, it is. It's tricky. It can be very, very tricky to speak to people in that sense. I guess, I try my best to rely on traditional practices. And when I speak to traditional practices, I guess I'm talking about sort of constitutional medicine, the 6 tissue states, iridology, when I can do that, tongue diagnosis, all those things that have sort of been upheld by, it's not even from naturopathy, that's just been taken from all ancient traditions, Ayurveda, Arabic medicine, So in some ways, in those instances where I'm in more of that quicker consulting space, I will try and take in obviously what people are looking like. Try and really ask them the questions of, do you feel like you tend to run more hot or more cold? Or is your symptom, feeling more damp or dry? And it sounds very basic, I guess, in a sense, but it helps so much to be specific with the herbs. And that's I feel like I'm a big advocate for trying to be as specific as we can with the herbs and not going down that path of, just take the turmeric for joint pain, and just take lemon balm for anxiety and things like that. And it's not to say that there's not a place for that, in a sense, especially when people are new to herbal medicine. You don't also want to overload someone in a sense either, because you do want people to just sort of take the medicine as well, without scaring them away with all these other tactics of, if you're not aware of that. But I do very much try and lean back to, what traditional practitioners focused on, because it was just so effective. And I don't sort of understand the way that naturopathy is going with this very Western medical mindset. Reductionist. And again, there's a place for all of it. It's not just one way or the other. But, I think it's pretty well known now in our society that studying anything just by one part of it is not how it is in reality. Even humans, if you just study do an autopsy or things like that, it's not, you can't sort of understand who that person was, or what about the things that they loved or they enjoyed, or there's so much complexity to it. So anyways, coming back to that, but I do feel that really relying on those more constitutional practices, so really trying to be specific for the person and what their tissue states are like.
And it's kind of really honouring the whole person, isn't it, rather than looking at that specific joint or specific symptom. It's like, okay, let's look at this whole person. And I think it kind of translates to the herbs as well, rather than looking at this specific constituent that will have this effect on this pathway, and it will just deal with this symptom. I love looking at all of these kind of more subtle aspects of each herb, and then okay, well, I have this person who, yes, they have joint pain, but they also have gut dysfunctional. They also have mental health. They need support with their mental health. And look, this herb can do all of those things. Plus, it's it's lovely for someone who has a cooler constitution. And it's kind of doing both the human and the herb justice, I think, when we look at things that way.
Definitely. And it's giving respect to the people that have come before, and actually really, in some cases, really given their lives for that to be available for us as practitioners. And I really hold that quite high in my own heart and in my own mind, of really trying to pay respect to what has come before, because I feel like things are slowly trying to be pushed out of our practice, just swept under the rug, just slowly pushed out the back door, and it's just going to become this big conglomerate of functional testing and
which we already have,
scientific models, which we have and which are useful when they're needed. But I've also had many experiences of people being like, I've just paid this $600 plus test and it came back with nothing, So,
or I paid this $600 test and it's exactly what you're telling me without even having seen it. Just by observing me and and asking me some really targeted questions, you've come to the same conclusion.
Definitely. It's just wild, isn't it, to think about it, because I often quite contemplate too, like, if the possibility did arise where we didn't have any access to those testings or those kind of more mechanical ways of being in practice, it's like, what would people do, And I think that's something to really think about, because it's definitely a possibility, as we've seen with how quickly things can change over the last few years and as a society, and what can affect the whole world. And so, I do. I really think about those things a lot and try to implement them as much as I can to people when it's needed. Of course, if someone needs, and that's going to be really beneficial for them, I'm not going to advise them not to go down that path. But it's just trying to bring back the awareness of having the respect previous traditions. Yeah.
Keeping those old skills alive. It's like, so frequently here in the Northern Rivers we've had blackouts and been isolated, and if you didn't know, how to make pancakes from the flour that you had in your pantry and the supermarket's not open, you haven't got a lot to eat.
Exactly. It's so true. Yeah.
Keeping those old traditions and skills alive. And that actually kind of segues into this beautiful practice that you've been keeping alive in your beautiful herbal oils, which I know is just really lighting a fire for you at the moment. Yeah. Why were you drawn to herbal oils, Amber?
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, I first came across the potent herbal oils about maybe 4 years ago, and I just found it such an accessible way to access herbal medicine. And even though at that time I was still studying, so I wasn't even in the clinic at that time. But just witnessing how hard people could experience taking herbs internally.
Yes.
Maybe someone's not super open to powders or teas, or and that can obviously be very hard and very limiting to sort of deal with. And so when I came across herbal body oils, it was just such a beautiful, calming, wonderful practice that really truly anyone can actually implement into their lives. And just, I sort of also, I guess, was on that path, still am, but also on that path, a little bit of looking into Ayurvedic medicine, having friends who had studied Ayurveda. And Abhyanga, of course, in Ayurveda is a very potent practice of applying the oil to your skin as a way for self-massage, nervous system reset, relaxation. But then this, I guess, was just taken more in that sort of Western herbal context of using the herbs that we have access to through our practice. And so it really excited me to be able to find something that I also felt was, for me, relatively... I do find tincture making and other types of herbal medicine fun to do, but the herbal oils of, because you just sort of have this immediate response of like the smells and the texture, and, you have to obviously, same as tinctures, but, squeezing them out. But I just found the whole process a lot more sort of energizing for me in that way. And at that time as well, I was very much in that period of studying where it was very hard. I was in a very hard time where I was doing those particular subjects and things that weren't super joyful. It wasn't really bringing a lot of calmness to my nervous system. And so the practice of just being able to apply herbal oils after my shower or before bed, or using it as like a nighttime ritual, sometimes in the morning, if I needed that too, was such a really potent way to be able to really regulate myself. And I found it extremely helpful. And so I guess it's one of those age-old things where sort of feel like, well, if I find this helpful, then surely, other people out there can, and there's so much to experiment with, of course, and so many herbs. And so I just really started to go down of trying with family and trying with friends. And
it sounds like it came at such a perfect time for you when everything felt really dry and it was a bit of a struggle to continue, and everything was hard in the degree, and this kind of lit that fire again. I'm wondering if it's impacted on your connection to the herbs.
Yes, I feel like it definitely has deepened my connection with the herbs, obviously, that I work with when I do oils, and the ones that I'm working with now. And it really gives me that sense of that invigoration of also wanting to learn more about them too, because I think it's very common to, in that institutional sense, be so overloaded with the information that then you almost just don't even really want to have any more information as time goes on, even though studying herbs and being able to have that knowledge is I'm so grateful for that, and it's what I want to do. But there's definitely been periods where I'm like, oh, I don't even want to read a herbal book. I've had that over the years. And so actually having the tangible access to creating something has also given me more of that spark to want to go further back into that when those times have come up. So I find that really important as well, if anyone is struggling in that sense, to just kind of make something, because it does really bring that vitality back, even if it's just a small glimmer, Yes. Yeah, but it's following that light of nature.
I think that's so true, Amber. Just actually physically connecting with the herb in a way where you're using your senses.
Yes.
It's tactile. You're touching, you're cutting, you may be harvesting from the garden, you're smelling, may not be tasting a herbal oil, but maybe you're tasting the raw material as you're putting it into the oil, and then you're putting it on your body, and there's no possible way that you're not connecting with the herb on a really deep level, as opposed to, oh, yes, this is very dry, reading this in my herbal text.
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, you get really familiar with what a herb looks like, maybe even how it grows.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the life cycles of them as well. Yeah, and it's great. Yeah, I love being able to open different books I have, and one of them's a little bit more maybe spiritual, energetic, one of them's a bit more materia medica. You sort of can be like, oh, I can have access, and I want to, and I think that's the big thing, is that you actually have that desire.
Brings the passion back. Do you think that, immersing yourself in herbs in this way is trickling into the way that you're practicing naturopathy?
Yes, I do feel like it is an ongoing practice, of course, and I'm still in a bit of a process currently that I'm still trying to weave and figure out, I guess, an actual direction I want to go, whether that's ever going to be a true destination or not. We'll find out, but I do find that, even the herbal oils in themselves is something I would really love to incorporate in my consults and in my ways of being with people, and still trying to see how that can work and make others feel comfortable in that sense as well. But it's definitely brought more ideas to what path I want to take, and a bit of a more niche sort of aspect to it, I guess, as well.
I love the comment you made about how herbal oils are just so accessible to everybody. It's so true that if you're new to herbal medicine, it's often really a really harsh kind of, do I want to be taking this internally? Like, maybe they're a total black tea drinker or a coffee drinker and they've never tried a herbal tea before in their lives, and, not having to ask someone to take something internally, but just inviting them to indulge in this beautiful practice of applying something externally is such a gentle way to introduce people, and might even foster a relationship where they feel safe then, taking something internally.
Exactly. Yes, which is why, such a big part of why I felt so drawn to it as well. And, sorry, excuse me. And I just also find that, that the act of also doing sort of self-massage too, and having that connection to yourself, has also become, such a beautiful practice. And I feel like that for people to have access to that as well, to really, it might sound quite intimate, I guess, but to just touch yourself, like be with your body, be with your skin, be with how you look. I do sort of find that we quite often just think about ourselves a bit too much. And so just to be in that environment of, obviously you're still with yourself, but more in that connected, tangible sense. And that can be very healing, just that in itself. Yeah.
I think it would really foster gratitude, Amber,
Yes.
in your body and what it can do, and in its in its beautiful capacity.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm wondering how you chose which herbs to work with for your herbal oils.
I think that is a hard question, because I think back when I first was trying out the oils, I was working with different herbs at that time. But now with what I'm doing, I guess in a way I've always had this sense of the herbs that feel like they're a little bit overlooked in our practices. At the moment, I've been working with some chamomile, with some comfrey, and then I do the hair oil. But just with the two that are more used for the body besides the hair oil, something like chamomile is a very overlooked herbal medicine, I find, and it's overlooked, but it's so popular. But because it's so popular, I feel that people can just kind of have this sense of, oh, it's just chamomile,
Or it gets a bit pigeonholed.
It gets a bit pigeonholed.
Yes, yeah.
Well, that's not really that exciting,
Yes.
Like, I want this next exciting fad, or this very exotic plant, that's going to have all these magical effects. But chamomile is one of those herbs that I think deserves more recognition than what it has. I would speak for comfrey in that sense too, because comfrey is very much seen as like a garden herb, a very good support for compost, a very good support to just have in your garden bed, to be feeding the soil. And so sort of in that sense of using it externally or as a body oil, it's sometimes seen as like, well, that just grows everywhere, especially over here in the Northern Rivers. And so I really like to have a way to bring awareness to these medicines that feel like, they're not sort of utilized as best as they could be at times. And so I've been quite, going down the path. I guess that's sort of how at the moment I've chosen those two, but I will speak to chamomile a little bit more because it is so helpful for muscle spasms and for cramps. Yes. And I do deal with very chronic pain, and so just implementing chamomile over my life and over I think I've been working with that oil maybe for about 2 years, sort of off and on. And I've just found that being able to use that as a herbal body oil has really had a positive effect on those issues that I can deal with at times. And so I think, little things like that it's sort of maybe not always understood, and it's important to have access to also simple medicines. I really believe simple medicines, simple in the sense of that they are actually simple and easy to use, but also simple in the sense of it's just one, if that makes sense. And so, that's kind of where that stemmed from currently.
What else do you love about chamomile?
Oh my goodness. Oh, chamomile just has the most divine smell. I think it's possibly my favorite smell. It's hard to say that. I feel like I need to apologize to the other plants. But honestly, that smell of the chamomile oil is just so soothing. I love that it really embodies such a sunshine quality as well. And I feel like it's a bit more different in the sense of, something like St. John's wort could be spoken to about having that very sun quality. But chamomile, I would almost imagine it to be more of a soothing sun. Yes. Whereas something like St. John's, I would imagine it to be it's more quite an intense heat. It loves the very strong sunshine. Yes. But chamomile has this very soothing sun quality, so it's sort of not maybe this direct burst of energy in that way, but it's this slow building, recuperating, nourishing effect that it has on the nervous system. And it actually really can be a herb that can be used just by itself for multiple ailments as well. It really works on most body systems, to be honest. You know, when you think about the GIT, the nervous system, it's just so, it's so amazing. And it's actually quite a bitter herb too. So even the liver, the biliary system as well. And it has, oh my gosh. What an amazing plant, and just grow it, and we can just grow it, and it's just available, and and it's also a sustainable herb too. You know, it's not sort
rare
of
or endangered.
Exactly. So it's a lot more accessible in that sense, that you can use it and not really have as much of a concern in those ways as well.
And isn't it lovely getting to know a herb in all of its guises, you know, rather than just thinking of, a lot of people would just think of chamomile as, oh, I'll take this if I need if I want to have a good sleep, or maybe if I feel a little bit bloated in the tummy. But knowing all of those other ways that chamomile can be supportive is such a gift.
Yes, it is. It's beautiful, and it reminds us that we don't need all these herbs, you know. You don't need to go into the dispensary and have a bottle made up that's like 10 herbs in it, or, you know, something like that. Like, you can really utilize very, more sustainable practices as well in that sense, which I really, love to try as much as I can.
Yeah. And as you said, a lot of people would be familiar with comfrey for its beautiful uses in permaculture and gardens and so forth. How are you leaning into comfrey in your oils?
Well, comfrey, I've actually had almost in myself, I've been quite shocked with how potent it has been, and the response I've gotten from the oil, and in the sense of it being such a healer and such a repairer. And it's not to use on deep wounds, because it is such a strong cell proliferator. It's actually, it's pretty wild how quickly it can bring those needed cells to the area for healing. And so it actually has that effect that, obviously if you're using it on deep wounds, it can actually heal that top layer of the skin before it heals the underneath. So it's so effective in superficial injuries, but sprains, strains. I've had people that have had knee reconstructions, that have had bruising and just stiffness and, some minor sort of, I guess, injuries in a sense after those experiences that just have been very difficult to manage and to tackle and to go away for them. And they've used the comfrey oil, and it's completely changed their ability to move around, to feel less pain. And it's such it's just a healer. I really feel like it's one of the most potent healing herbs that we can have access to. And again, it's sustainable too.
Yes, so easy to grow.
Effects, and it's so easy to grow.
Yes.
I love that. But I think comfrey really drew me in with its beautiful green, just those beautiful big green leaves.
So lush.
I love that about things, plants like mullein and stuff as well, and but how they have the sort of fluffy, I guess comfrey isn't as fluffy, but just the big leaves.
Texture,
and
yes.
And then the cute little flowers.
Oh, aren't they stunning? They're like little fairy bells.
Oh my goodness.
So beautiful. So beautiful. So in the theme of self-care, how would you recommend that somebody could use herbal oils to kind of enhance their self-care?
I recommend, something, I guess it does depend on the herbs, because something like comfrey, you can definitely use that all over your body, but I guess in a sense it is probably a bit more warranted for when it's needed. I mean, unless you know, have a lot of the muscle aches and pains, and of course you can do that. So in that sense, the comfrey I recommend in more of a when needed type of quality. The chamomile, it's definitely one of those things where I love to like have a hot shower, come out, just sit down on a towel, do some self-massage with the body oils, really just, incorporate those beautiful smells, the beautiful softness, the potency of the oil, the colours that they come out as is just also so vibrant and beautiful. And so I find that sort of, I guess after having that heat on your body can be really effective, obviously, because our pores are more open, so the skin's more susceptible to really taking in that medicine. But really at any time. But I have found the most effect to be sort of before sleep, more of that winding down type of quality, and then when we're in that rested and relaxed state, I find that, of course, you know, we just have more of that receptiveness to be able to really, take in what herbs are providing.
Beautiful. I think I read too somewhere that the feet are a beautiful place to put the chamomile oil.
The feet, yes. Yeah. And also the ears can actually be, a really effective way too, because they both, I might have to check my facts on that, but with the ears and the feet, they both have those connections to the organs in the body as well. So
I'm picturing a restless child and mama giving a foot massage with some chamomile oil before bed.
How beautiful. Or a child that's experiencing, you know, some colic or some cramps, a baby, you know, it's hard to sometimes decipher what they're asking for, and using something like chamomile on the belly and on the back, and beautiful.
And all those pressure points in the ears and the feet too, just so beautiful.
Just cover the whole baby.
I know, so lovely. Now, we've spoken in depth about comfrey and chamomile. I'm wondering if there's another herb that may have a shining light in your heart. What's your favourite herb, and why is that, Amber?
I'm gonna speak to at the moment, because it is hard to choose, as we all say. But I think in this tense, I will speak to lemon balm, and that is because I have recently gone through a spagyric process with the beautiful Heidi of Wildflower Walker, if anyone's interested. And I did a month-long, I guess, plant spirit communication, but spagyric workshop of working with lemon balm. And that has been a really profound experience, actually. And lemon balm is just the nectar. The nectar of life is really what you know, we were sort of told through having some of those dream journeys and what Heidi was guiding us through. And so, it's really amazing, because we made the spagyric medicine and let it sit for, after we did the whole process, the sort of alchemy process. And we, in the end, come out with the tincture, which is different, of course, to just a regular tincture in that, following that process. But we let it sit for a few weeks, and then actually being able to take that medicine, it actually tastes like honey. It was absolutely, wild. Like, the spirit of lemon balm is just this golden, rich, sweet nectar. So that's been really beautiful to incorporate into my life, and especially this journey of kind of starting a business and you know, in that personal sense, just really being able to find the joy in what you really want to do and support yourself in that.
Oh, that's beautiful, Amber. What a gorgeous, gorgeous connection to a herb that ended up being absolutely perfect for you at this time.
Yes.
That's really special.
Yeah.
Oh, how lovely. Now, I know that as well as the Substack that we've spoken about, which people can choose to subscribe and read your beautiful musings, chatting about how you're just such a beautiful natural storyteller, and that's really come out through this chat today. But the other way people can connect with you is through your Etsy store.
Yes, I recently opened my Etsy store. And so I do have a couple of the oils at the moment available on there. All of my business is just called From The Eartha, and you can really find me anywhere under that name. So I will definitely be adding more to the Etsy in time, and I'm sort of in the process of also changing a couple of things and doing a couple of new formulations as well. So that will be, to be continued or watch this space.
Yes.
Yes, and then I do have an Instagram, but I mean, I do find Instagram quite difficult at times to utilise in that sort of personal / business sense, but yeah, that is also From The Eartha.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Amber. This has been such a lovely chat. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and your wisdoms. I've really enjoyed chatting with you.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so glad you tuned into this episode of Self-Care with Herbs, a segment of the Elder Tree podcast. The Elder Tree is a non-profit dedicated to putting the medicine in the hands of the people through grassroots herbal education and earth skills, weaving a strong community of herbalists, healers and plant folk in Australia. If you'd like to dive a little deeper, you can head over to our Patreon, the Elder Tree Trove, to access special content from our podcast guests. I hope you found something in this episode that has inspired you to begin to lean into those plant allies and to experience your practice of self-care blossoming and blooming. I look forward to sharing more ways you can weave plant medicine into your days next month.